When I was a kid in the 80s, I used to listen to like a local radio show Sunday afternoons called On the Wire, presented by Steve Barker. And Steve and John Peel obviously were single-handedly responsible for me finding bands, and artists like Sonic Youth, African Headcharge, Tackhead, Test Department, all those sort of guys, and it was just so thrilling to discover these new artists. And the show's still going on, and Steve's still going, albeit on Mixcloud, because the BBC unceremoniously turfed him off the radio show in favor of some sort of pretentious shit, the show that'll have the listeners running for the hills. Anyway, he tags his shows with the brilliant term of undefinable, which makes me just love him even more because I kind of loathe the way that the way that genres are used to kind of stereotype and pigeonhole. And in a long-winded way, this is where I get to my guest David Roush and his wonderful band, aka Schnack, where they fit him, Undefinable. Going right back to the release of Letter to German Vasquez Rubio around sort of 13, 14 years ago, to their latest single, Katie Swart, from their LP Jocoso. They're a fascinating, kaleidoscope of this sort of creative fertility and imagination, which I think, imagination is one of the most important characteristics to have, for the world today. So I'm really excited to talk to David about his mindset, and how this has helped shape who he is today. So, David, welcome. Thanks very much for coming on, man.
Such an honor to be here, and I really appreciated the way you introduced this music and the context of where you're coming from as a listener and music. And great big hearty shout out to your whole audience.
Thank you. It's it's kind of interesting. When I was sort of thinking about how to sort of introduce this, and it just sort of struck me that like when I was a kid, I was kind of growing up, there was it took me a while to become less blinkered in the sort of the music that I liked. I mean, I guess this is kind of part of finding out who you are and finding your own identity and sort of way in the world. But then I remember, I think it was like, for me, it was probably maybe before this, but certainly like Public Enemy, because I was listening to like a lot of sort of hardcore music when Public Enemy sort of came along. That was like and how old was I then? I was probably 18, 19. And that was a real kind of transformation that's just opened up a load of these kind of doors and gateways into these other sort of worlds, which were just fascinating.
Yes, that's so cool that you were able to appreciate something totally different from what you'd heard. And I imagine you probably could find, after all, some kinship between hardcore music and hip hop music. I've heard some people to just describe those two genres as folk music of different parts of urban communities. And I think that is really correct. And, and also I've heard other people say hardcore music has its longer ancestry in funk music, and so does hip hop, and where like other heavy music, heavy metal, it doesn't much of a deep connection with funk music. It's a little different thing rhythmically. Hardcore, the term groove is a really big part of it, and obviously that word comes up in funk music, and obviously is in hip hop as well. So maybe that's what your young soul was connecting with, from this continent to where you were.
Yeah.
Assuming you were in the UK at the time.
Yeah. Well, I was born in the north of England, like a sort of smallish town. And I used to, kind of like it's about probably about 30 miles away from Manchester. Was the Manchester and Liverpool were the two kind of biggest cities that were sort of close by, and they were like in the early sort of 80s were really kind of influential, and kind of like inspired me. There's a lot of stuff going on there, so I used to go there from my kind of small town, and it was like kind of going into this other world. It's almost like when you're sort of hunting for records and you get drawn in by the artwork, the album sleeve, because you haven't necessarily heard the record. It's the artwork that sort of drags you in. That was just like fascinating for me. I just loved it. Just sort of being, imagining this other world that I kind of wanted to be a part of, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I mean, I guess for you guys as well. I mean, that kind of strong visual identity, with your particularly with your videos, I guess, but also the artwork as well. I mean, that's always been a big part of what you do. Is a real kind of like strong, identifier, I think.
I appreciate you recognizing that. And you're right. I guess for better or for worse, I'm the kind of person that when I see something striking or experience something striking, I have there's a deep impression on
Mm,
me from it. Maybe everybody's like this, but for whatever reason, it ends up conjuring certain imagery, and I kind of feel an attachment to those images and the circumstances in which they, um, as a music loving person,
mm.
any music that is swimming around in those moments.
Yeah, and I kind of, I mean that again is what I was saying in the intro about imagination, and I just think that is sort of so important, and I think in a lot of respects, from I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel that with a bit of hindsight, looking back to when I was started going to school, or like when you were a kid, you have so much imagination, kind of like you're playing with different things, and you could go into a room and you just make things happen. Then you got to go to school, you start work, and that gets kind of drummed out of you. I see what you're doing, and there's just like this kind of like creativity, this and imagination that's going on with whatever's sort of inspiring you. Has that always been the case for you?
Uh, yes, I think of two things when you say this about, um, I don't know, I'll use a phrase from one of my favorite authors who actually helped inspire the name of the band, Friedrich Nietzsche.
Mm,
He has some phrase he says something, he's just talking about something like the seriousness of children at play.
mm,
And I think you're exactly right that in some ways it makes sense that we lose some kind of childish spontaneity, naivete,
mm.
whimsy, whatever it is. We something to growing up after all. Um, but we do always run the risk of losing that serious playfulness and the imaginative or who knows, maybe even moral
Mm,
capacities that we had as children.
mm,
And so two things come to mind. For one, You mentioned the first release, Letters to Herman Vasquez Rubio. There's a song on there called "Hey Man, Nice Turtle Theme," but we refer to it just as Turtles.
Mm.
And we actually just last week did a new version of that song with a fresh arrangement, and we now have this superstar other singer in the band, Bella Comadromos, is
Mm.
unbelievable contralto.
Yeah,
She provides so much power and this gorgeous higher range,
she
and
has an
she's
amazing voice.
yeah,
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, yeah.
badass lady. And so we recorded this song, and this song is one of the kind of goofier songs I've ever written. Definitely very childish, so much so that I thought to myself, like, where the hell does this song come from in my own personal history? It is just a kind of um, Dr. Seuss inflected random lyric about turtles. There's nothing serious about it or brooding or whatever.
Yeah.
But I realized when I listened to the melody in the guitars, that's kind of one of the most standout things about the song.
Mm.
And the implied harmonization in the bass line, it's based in the Ninja Turtles theme. So
Wow.
with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in a half shell, Turtle power. I could keep going. I could keep going.
You
Now
should do. You should do.
I don't know. My doggy's whining at me. I don't know the rest of the words. That's my only excuse. They're the most something fighting teeth. Okay. But yeah, there's a kind of preposterously exact mapping of some of the kind of harmonic shifts or whatever. And
Mm.
I really loved that song right away, and I loved that show. And for whatever reason, the Ninja Turtles were an important part of the weird
Yeah.
childhood that I had. And I don't know, maybe there's some metaphor about growing up in an industrial age in the city or something like that,
Yeah.
and sort of toxins we all imbibe and eat, and how they change us in good ways and bad ways.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a
No, it's.
little
I think
far
it's.
reaching.
I know. I think it's fascinating where sometimes like where some of these ideas come from, or sort of what stimulates you to, or inspires you to kind of bring them out. It can, sometimes on the surface seems totally random and sort of like unconnected, but the possibly is there is something, there is some sort of causation somewhere. I don't, it's fascinating where it is. I mean if it, I mean, is it okay to sort of talk about your, your sort of childhood and what you sort of remember as being, I guess, sort of formative influences, either, kind of people around you, people that you hung out with, or events that sort of happened that, kind of started to shape who you are today.
Absolutely. All of us, like I said to you before we started recording, life is a mix.
Mm.
When anybody asks me how I'm doing, I say I'm a mix. There are good things, bad things,
Yeah.
mediocre things. So I had a mix then, as I do now, and when I think back on the mix and how it relates to music and creativity, I'll just grab a couple first images. I think one of the biggest inspirations for music, as corny as this sounds, it's true. Love is one of the biggest inspirations, and I think love means so many different things and has so many different manifestations. They don't always go together. They are not all good. Some of them are you might even say not so good. Some are great. Some are amoral, not good or bad. They just are. But I have a memory of love. Actually, she was a British lady. I don't know. She might still be alive. Helen Barnstable was my sixth grade teacher. Yeah. What's up, Helen? I don't know if you are still alive or if you have a good memory of me or not, but I hope you do, because I have a lot of gratitude to you. She was the leader of this reps, little band that she threw together with me and some of my classmates. And she was playing some Renaissance folk song, and I had a hand drum, and in this performance, and it was just a dun 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 dun. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I just remember the last 8 bars of the song in this performance. I totally lost count, and I was like, holy shit, when do we end the song? And I'm staring at her, and there's this eye contact, like, holy shit, when do we stop? And we stopped together right on the one, and the crowd went crazy. People were like, it was like the Stravinsky Rite of Spring story. People were tearing the place to shreds in that's not true. But it felt like that might happen because of faith and love and care. In a tiny way, in that little moment, Helen Barnstable was a source of that. And so I think that story means that I had a lot of love and care in my world, in my community at large. And then again, there was some strife and storm and stress and harm too, in the world also. And I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, on the wealthiest street in the city, which is not the poorest city in the country, but it's not a wealthy place at all. I was down the street from the president of Yale, and there were labor demonstrations outside of his house every so often, people doing candlelit vigils, hoping that they could get a decent livelihood, paid sick days. I don't know exactly what they were protesting, but Yale is not a friend to the common person, to say the least. And then the one time I got my bike stolen, a kid from the other side of town just said, "Hey man, can I see the serial number on that?" Smiling at me, and I was like, "Oh, this is funny." But I just let my bike down, and he rode off with it, and that's not at all a trauma of any kind, but it was a very clear sign that I lived in a stratified world, and chaos or the fates or the insane gods just dump us into different positions spuriously in this chaotic, stratified world. And this guy and I could have been friends, but in that moment, he stole my bike, which is fine because he needed one and I could get one very easily, and he didn't harm me at all. But I could just sort of see in that moment, some people are given things they should have, and other people's are deprived things they should have. And that was you know, there are much more painful examples of that along the way.
Mm.
And then I guess I'll talk about another teacher, and then unless you want to
No, I was
jump in.
well, yeah. I mean, if I could just say
Yeah.
so I was like when I was at school. I mean, I was classically trained from
Mhm.
the age of like 8 up until 17. I did all my exams, but I remember like at sort of high school, my music teacher was horrific. He was so talented, but he was brutal. He was really brutal. And I remember, so he used to scare the shit out of everybody. He was, and so I played the cello, and that was my instrument. And but there was one time we were having like I was in the choir as well. We were having this like choir practice in his music room, and he told me to get up and turn the page on his on it. He was playing the piano, and I could read music, but I wasn't trained. I wasn't au fait with what that situation of him sort of playing and turning the page. I couldn't follow it. That I'd never done it before. And I don't know how I got through it. I think I was, in the end, I was just watching for him to make a slight body movement to indicate that that's when the page should be turning. I've never been so petrified in my life
Mm.
doing that. And it's funny how those sort of things, I can perfectly remember that image. And it's like, God, over 40 years ago, I can still remember that scene of being in that room and being absolutely sort of petrified. It's weird how that sort of stuff kind of stage. I don't know what lessons I learned from that, but it's still with me.
Yeah. I think the nasty, threatening, cruel music pedagogy practice is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think it just absolutely misses the point of music, and it harms people and it alienates people,
Mm,
um, and it scares people sometimes away from the beauty of the math of music. Music theory is not a dickhead school teacher. It's this
yeah.
gorgeous, almost platonic ideal that underlies in some way or another all of, not all, but some of the beautiful things we hear in music.
Mm,
You know, you let your heart be hit first by a series of sounds and chords, notes, whatever.
yeah.
And then when you study the math, it's this extra joy that's secondary in our experience, but is always there in the thing itself, so to speak.
Mm,
And that's something that people should be lovingly shown, not
yeah.
threatening. You know, it shouldn't be
Completely agree.
nobody should be bludgeoned with that. So oh,
I think you're right. I think that was what sort of contributed me eventually, kind of like when I was 17, just sort of giving it up. It was a combination of that, never feeling like it was my own instrument, but also the framework was that I learned, the classical framework was so formulaic and kind of like this is how it has to be done. There
yeah.
was no kind of like opportunity to sort of improvise or think for yourself in some way to really kind of feel it, then. And I wish there had been, because I think, it would be. I mean, I recently bought myself a new one and I have to try and coach myself to think differently to the way that my brain last had to, kind of function with it. It's exciting to do it that way, but I think you're right. Having that kind of nurturing, environment where you're encouraged to kind of feel and love it is, that's what should have happened, but it wasn't like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't, nobody needs music theory. All of the great, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just playing this instrument kinds of musicians are some of the most important musicians ever. And then, you know, there are plenty of great mathematicians of music too, and plenty of mediocre non-mathematicians and whatever. So yeah, I think I'm happy that you're giving this a second try, and I hope someday you can be free of that weird man and his awful memory.
Yes, yeah. That's my version of childhood trauma. I mean, it's not bad really, but what was it? What was the second teacher story you were
It's
going to
funny.
tell?
So, gosh, it's really grotesque in the context of the news of my country, and its horrible leadership, and the fact that we're run by bigoted plutocrat pedophiles. I don't know if this guy was any of those things, but he probably wasn't a PDF file. But there was a teacher who had a kind of like wild, eccentric charisma. He was sort of a Looney Tune. He was a history teacher, and he had a sort of charm in that way. But he was always he always had like a kind of dull expression, and his eyes were always wide, and his face was almost always red, and he always spoke very quickly and would make weird threats to like dump the contents of a recycling bin on one of the students. But the weird thing is, dude had, I think, 6 marriages and divorces was the word on the street. When I was in senior year of high school, I was at this assembly where once every Friday there was a gathering of the students for 40 minutes, and there would be just announcements about what was going on, or sometimes we would have guests do different kinds of presentations. There were 2 lawyers that were invited to speak at our school by the Gay Straight Alliance, and they were lobbying our state government to pass gay marriage legalization in the state of Connecticut in, I think it was 2000, it must have been 2002 or 3. And so these 2 ladies, they might have even been partners, I'm not sure, but they gave a totally gentle, like almost soft-spoken, patient, just kind of straight ahead presentation about what they were doing, why they were doing it. No, bashing or whatever the right wing would imagine somebody like that would do. All of a sudden, about 20 minutes into this speech, the weirdo I was just talking about, the history teacher from the back of the auditorium, interrupts this speaker and says, well, maybe we don't want the policy that you're trying to enact to be passed because we're and of course the effing silent majority was not at all silent. The 30% of the school that were morons and bigots cheered at this fucking interruption, and I blacked out, and I don't remember what I said, but I was in the front row, or a couple rows back, and I turned around. I had the System of a Down T-shirt, and I was like, and I just ran my mouth at him, didn't say any swear words, just kept it cool, kept it straight, and then the last thing I said was institutionalized bigotry, and everyone clapped for my little ass. Okay, I'm gonna stop flexing on the one moment that I, was typically involved in the world. But I talk about that to say more about, again, the mix of the circumstances in which I grew up. The fact that there was a gay straight alliance at all says one thing. The fact that the speakers were there says one thing. And the fact that, again, this almost definitely closeted man. Because six marriages and divorces, and you're going to talk about the institution of marriage or whatever, and he's a history teacher. And this I'm going to bring this full circle. When I first got to the school, this was a K through 12, we had an effing trial for Christopher Columbus for murder. Now we're going back 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm 8 years old, and they have 8-year-olds do a mock trial, emphasis on the mock, more like mockery. Mock trial of Christopher Columbus for murder. And this same effing history teacher with the 6 wives and the closeted desires, it plays Christopher Columbus. And, I don't think I used the phrase institutionalized bigotry at 9 years old in my statement as a prosecution. I wish I had that acumen at that time, but I didn't. But I probably said, this guy killed a lot of people. He's guilty of murder. And the jury, or the who knows, he was ruled as innocent, and but on the grounds of ex post facto, which means something like before a thing exists or something like that. And the idea was, well, before the West conquered the North American continent, there wasn't any law or order in the first place. So there were no murders that took place because there were no murders on this. There was no law or order on this land. So he didn't kill anyone. And so that's the guy interrupting the lawyers.
The lawyers, yeah.
So I guess that gives a little bit of sense of this, a little bit more about the weird mix that I lived in and how I tried to navigate it.
What sort of kind of friends were you sort of hanging out with? What kind of people did you sort of gravitate towards?
I think for whatever reason I was a sort of chameleon socially. I had some very normie friends. I had some weirdo friends. And it's interesting you asked that, because I've realized that Ecke Schnock, one of its goals is to invite the normies to feel weird and the weirdos to feel normal.
I like that.
And so I think I've always been amazed by people in our flaws and our virtues and our mediocrities. And I think I saw, again, a whole mix of folks in a kind of Federico Fellini, that movie Amarcord. I don't know how to say that word. I think that's how you say it. But that movie is kind of a study of the weird mix of human beings in any community. And I was drawn to that at that time and made friends in that way. And Sorry
to interrupt.
You're fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you think that being that I get, it's good sort of phrase, social chameleon is like you had this kind of ability is not the right word, but to kind of form friendships with just like a different range of people. it's like you just have that. Some people just have that ability. They can just, kind of get on with people.
Yeah, I think I could, and every personality is a dilemma. If you have that
Mm,
ability, you are more able to connect with more people in some ways. And then I learned that I've also been more vulnerable to being fooled by
yeah, yeah, yeah.
too. And then if you
I
are
agree. Yeah,
a little more socially guarded, you are less likely to be fooled or manipulated or in some way or another.
yeah.
But you lose a little of the color of human life.
I
Uh,
agree.
so every personality is a dilemma. And again, I was just plopped out into the world with that aptitude and then might have nurtured it in some ways.
Mm. I hear you with that because I think that I mean I think I've had sort of similar kind of issues, and it's like yeah, there's yeah, on the one hand you meet all these kind of different sort of people, and eventually you kind of work out which ones are going to be closer. You're going to be closer to. It doesn't mean that you sort of dismiss them, but you're just naturally closer to some people than others. But it can mean that you end up, getting some way down the road in a kind of friendship or relationship with somebody, and then at some stage it's like, oh, hang on a second. There's some things about this person that perhaps I don't like. I'm not kind of comfortable with. But on the other hand, yeah, those that are sort of more guarded, you're absolutely right with that. It's a really good point that they can miss out on that kind of color in sort of human life, but it's almost like a safety, I guess.
Yes, that's true. I agree. And I don't know, I think I'm happy I have the personality that I have
Yeah.
in that way. But I also know a lot of people again who are much more guarded and I see them thrive in other ways
Mm,
and
yeah.
I see some of my dear friends are people like that
Mm,
and I can see them sometimes they're more able to help me snap out of a naivete about something or someone and I appreciate that guardedness in those
yeah.
circumstances.
I spent a bit of time on my own, when I was growing up. So I got kind of comfortable in that in my own company and thinking, I guess sort of thinking for myself as well. Um which I found, because some people have said to me along the way, well, well, didn't you miss having brothers and sisters? Well, I was like, I didn't have any, so I don't have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of quite happy at that because in lots of ways, because there are times as you get older where you do spend time on your own, and and I'm comfortable with that. I'm kind of quite happy with that. Um, yeah. I mean, what was your kind of experience?
With growing up and having relationships in different
I, I,
ways.
gue- I guess yeah, just sort of spending time on your own, and because I mean I guess my sort of personality. I mean they're not directly related, but I was terribly shy when I was a kid. I was really really kind of introverted, and it took me a while to kind of get through that and all that sort of stuff. That's where I was coming from.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I had a sibling and have a sibling, and I have a half sister and a stepbrother,
Mm,
and um, the let's say like the politics of family
mm,
are complicated for everyone,
yeah,
and my own version of that is parents who were divorced, and I had a stepmother. And again, you see a mix of love for the members of your family, and then from them in different ways, and then some confusion, miscommunication, and other kinds of storms that all of us have our own versions of. And I think I, you know, I had very close connections with my siblings, and whenever we couldn't totally understand each other, I found ways to have solitude and reflection. And I also found my kin who are not immediate family members. But there also is, all of us have a kind of self-same woe. We all have some worry or sadness, anger, or something like that, that we only really know the contours of in some way. And I think, I definitely got caught up in that then. I get caught up in it now. So again, a mix of closeness, understanding, hurt, misunderstanding, and connection and disconnection. So
and for like getting into your first sort of foray into music, get a kind of, what how did that sort of come about? Either your first band, or first, kind of like, effort at recording. How did that all come about?
Well, the very first band was, I was in 6th grade and I played drums.
Yeah.
And that was a cute and sweet and wonderful dalliance. But the first, I had an indie rock band in freshman year of college, or maybe sophomore year. I played drums with them, and then I started what was kind of a father of Ecke Schnock, in terms of wild, indefinable, to use a word you used earlier, art rock, a mix of sounds, synthesis of something like art music, classical music, jazz music, and then heavy music and pop music. That band was called the Fa'afafine, and we had a chant that said how to spell the name: F-A apostrophe A, F-A-F-I-N-E, F-A apostrophe A, F-A-F-I-N-E. And so that was really fun. And that was kind of the that was kind of the
Brilliant
definition of Ecke Schnock.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Philadelphia in 2008, I realized I needed to do something like it again. And I started writing songs. And then a couple years later, I started the first version of Ecke Schnock with some dear friends of mine there, who I had met at Temple University, and while I was studying classical guitar.
Right. Okay.
So it was a mix of just stumbling into it, playing cool ass indie rock music, and then saying to myself, well, what do I want to do with the wildness that I hear and appreciate in
Mm.
music, and going from that trial, let's say, version of this idea to the one that I'm still working on now.
So I think this is all really interesting, and I'm interested as well in um what it's I guess it's kind of hard to answer, but what, like, for me, what made me, like, at the very outset, what made me, get into the Ramones, first of all? Why that particular sound? What was it that attracted me to that style of music versus disco, for example?
Hmm.
You've started off with kind of like indie rock, and then sort of like the, kind of the father of Ekeshag, which I'm not going to try and pronounce or even sing or chant. But again, very like undefinable, very diverse influences. What do you think it was that sort of attracted you to that blend, if you will?
The mix of people you encounter,
Mm,
again, different kinds of flaws, virtues, mediocrities,
mm,
lexicon, motivations, cultural history, all of it. I've never been able to look at music differently than that. It all feels like genres feel like just different people.
yeah.
And I don't want to just have one kind of friend. I want, or foe for that matter. I don't know. I want to be with people as genuinely and as to whatever extent it's healthy for both of us, as close as I can.
Mm,
And so music to me feels like something we should um appreciate. Well, not we. I personally can't view it as I am just a metal musician or just a classical musician,
yeah.
just a pop artist, whatever it is. I feel like I need the mix, and I all the genres that I do my best to write in and synthesize
Mm,
are in a way just different parts of the soul
mm,
and account for different corners of our heart in different ways. And I guess I'm attempting to unify all of that through how I write.
mm. I love that. I mean, I think that's just fascinating. That's just like a great way to kind of look at it as these kind of like musical sort of styles as sort of as kind of people, and I just love the, again, coming back to sort of imagination and almost like you know curiosity to see how you can kind of bring these sort of things together, and kind of create them into something that you can then sort of put out into the world.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I never want to feel like I'm totally making saccharine comforts for myself or other
Mm,
people. So I want a serious side to the music in
mm,
so many different ways. But I also don't want to be melodramatic or sadomasochistically
yeah,
doomorous. And
yeah,
I do think things are funny or people are charming or life sometimes is and can be joyful. There are moments of justice in the
mm,
world. And so I think trying to embrace as much as we can and share it with the world and see if people can catch all of those mixed meanings
Mm, mm.
and their unity and their tension. That
'Cause I guess
feels
it,
like a goal.
yeah, I mean, again, it sort of strikes me that you know that you. I guess I'm thinking in a not necessarily, but as an example, you know, with your with the video, for
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
you know, there are lots of sort of different kind of things that come through, like the you know, there's humor, there's self-deprecation, but there's seriousness as well, and it's a little bit kind of like off kilter, you know, and stuff like that. So it's got this kind of mix of things, which to me just sort of makes it so interesting and kind of engaging. Like you don't want to miss out in a way, you know, because it's engaging in how it tells the story, I guess.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I we have one video where we're just playing the song and it looks cool or whatever.
Mm.
That's okay. I much prefer drama, some kind of story or another.
Well,
When I
Katie's Ward, for example, the
Yeah.
latest video that you've got,
Hmm. Hmm.
perfect example.
Yes, yes. That one is both a music video in its short form and a short film
Yeah,
in a longer
yeah.
uh, form, and that is a song and a video about defending ourselves from madness and
Mm,
from cruel greed. And so, for the viewers who haven't seen it, I play a cruel, greedy madman who has a righteous comeuppance from two people that I try to harm.
mm,
And the world changes suddenly when one sister, the two sisters, one sister destroys her sister's wart. She plucks the wart just as I'm about to make my horrible move.
mm,
And the wart fires out this disgusting goo and it covers the scene, and the world is transformed to this surreal landscape where these five goddesses of, wrathful justice
mm.
take the character down. And um, so, yeah, I much prefer that sort of thing when I'm doing music. Okay, we see that you have cool style. We see that you have some okay dance moves or even great dance moves. You
Mm.
have a nice set. We can see that you can play the drums or the guitars, whatever. We're watching you. We're in the filmic medium. So use it somehow. You use it in a way other than just showing the fact that you exist and that you
Yeah,
play
yeah,
the instruments. Everybody knows that. I'm not. I don't want to talk too much smack because there are plenty of good videos
yeah, yeah.
that that are that setup. But I prefer the other version. I think the best one of the best examples I can think of is the Foo Fighters video for Everlong.
Oh
That
yes, yeah, 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 yeah.
video is just excellent,
So
and
good, isn't it? Yeah,
so
yeah. Does it ever feel like you know, with whatever you do, whether you know, like a new single, a new record, new video, does it ever feel like you're taking a risk?
always,
Does it? Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
always.
Mm,
I think like we can only hope that anybody understands or likes what we do. We can have absolutely no expectations,
mm,
as hard as that is.
mm.
And whether we want to admit it or not, we want people to like the art we make.
Yeah.
And because you want to feel like someone understands your experience or values your talents
Yeah.
or has been helped by the art you've made. And so you always risk a disappointment in any of those goals. So
Mm.
I would say it's always a risk.
And I guess I was thinking, okay, there's again coming back to this idea of different kind of musical styles and musical influences that you sort of bring in, and how you could have something very very kind of diverse, even within the one record, and do something completely different the next. That's a kind of I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I can understand what you're saying. Yes, that you never take anything for granted, and there's a risk in whatever you do that some people may have moved on to the next thing,
Right.
or whatever. Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I guess as we get older as well, generally, we become, in some ways in our life, we become more risk averse, don't we? To taking risks, and but in other aspects of our life, like I think, like in some parts of my life, I think I'm willing to take more risks now than I was when I was younger. But in other aspects, I'm kind of more cautious.
Right.
And I'm not just talking about, kind of like any kind of physical activities and stuff like, where I'm worried about breaking bones and things like that. But, just it's a weird thing, like how your mind works.
Absolutely. And I think in particular, I understand, well, one of the risks I always take with my music is the possibility that somebody says an understandable criticism
Mm,
of the music I make. This guy's a pretentious asshole. I
mm,
don't know. Maybe the asshole is probably too strong a word. That's maybe unfair. But I can understand why some people hear the music as pretentious. If it's not really your thing to hear a lot of different genres mixed together, it can sound like I'm just, you know, trying and pretending to like these things to make some
mm,
kind of achievement in that regard for its own sake.
yeah.
Again, not because I genuinely love what I hear in these genres and genuinely believe that they have a kinship with
Mm,
each other that might not be immediately obvious. And um, and so yeah, I've heard people say this is false, this is pretentious, and I do understand why people say that, even though I know it's not.
mm,
I don't know if it's like good or bad
yeah.
necessarily. I know I love the music I've made, obviously, but I can understand why some people don't, and why it sounds like a frivolous, what I think are my talents to
Mm,
combine things or something. I can't remember the band, but there's some prog band from the 70s that had this like 18-minute song, and
mm,
like every minute, or maybe it was the early 80s, I don't know. Every minute changed changed
mm,
genre in a very specific and piecemeal way.
mm,
And I was like, what is this? This is a little bit silly. I mean, it was, again, impressive performance, and maybe I'm
mm,
making the very same misunderstanding of them that I'm hoping people don't make of me.
mm,
But it did sound false or
mm,
pretentious or something like that. And sometimes I'm worried that that's how people's people hear my music. But that's the risk I take, and I take it because I know there are many other people that say, "Whoa, I never thought I could hear this mix of sounds and hear
Mm.
synthesis at the same time that felt internally cohesive and real and meaningful.
Does it does it bother you what other people think? I mean, or does it bother you to any degree?
Sure. I mean, uh, I guess I'll say it depends on what they say.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't like the music because they don't like my politics, good riddance.
Mm.
I don't
Yeah.
want you at the show anyway. I don't want bigots and
Yeah.
plutocrats at concerts.
Yeah.
Unless they're going through a little curiosity change, in which case, okay, fine. Come on in, listen close, don't be a jerk to anybody,
Mm.
and listen and just be a decent person.
Yeah.
So I don't care about bigots disliking the music. And then if people kind of misunderstand it in a sort of basic musical way, I think that's actually funny and sort of gratifying. There
Mm.
was a critic who said for one of our releases that uh, something like they think they're Radiohead. And I was like, this is a shockingly absurd and ridiculous criticism. It's as if you didn't listen to either Eke Schnock or Radiohead ever a day in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, talk about pretentious, you know. So that one I appreciated and enjoyed that criticism because it
Yes.
was so silly just an impressive level of ignorance
Yeah.
about the subject you were speaking very haughtily about. That was just funny and gratifying, and I was happy to be an occasion for that. When somebody, like I won't say who, but I have a musical hero who I met recently, and he didn't like toss it out altogether. Um, I felt some amount of appreciation and encouragement, but he spoke to me in a very muted way and not
Mm.
the super fan um, reaction that I was hoping he would have.
Mm.
And there was a bit of a like, keep at it, which again, on the one hand, I really appreciated because if your hero says keep at it, it means they're taking you seriously and
Yeah.
they want the best for you. There's another sense of it in which I'm wondering if he's saying like, keep at it, kid, in an ironic way, like give up already,
Like don't keep
Um,
at it.
yeah, yeah, give up. You suck. Uh, but again, hopes only, no expectations. He was not at all an asshole. He wasn't even at all mean. I
Mm.
can't expect him to have any reaction at all to what I make.
Yeah.
I can only hope that he has the reaction that I want him to have. And so, that one had a minor bruise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I got I got a body and a soul that can heal itself.
You got your coat of armor over the
That's right.
years. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. I don't know if you
Amazing.
can hear my doggy is making some whining sounds in the background.
He's
He wants,
he's ready for you to leave this and go and do doggy things with him.
and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not. I want to stay, but I must actually say a heartbroken goodbye to you and your
No
audience.
problem. No problem at all,
Um,
David. It's been a pleasure. It's been
Such
great.
a joy, and thank you so much. Such a wonderful conversation,
It's
and
been great. It's been really fascinating listening to you, and thanks for your openness and heartfelt stories and ideas as well. I think it was really very, for me, it was very, very kind of like enlightening with some of the ideas that you've sort of thrown out there. So thank you so much. It's been great.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for asking the questions you did and providing your own reflection and personal experience. It's conversation is a skill, the giving and taking of space, the trading
Yeah,
floors, whatever you want to call it. So it's been really
absolutely.
cool jamming today, having a little jam session, blowing some lines together, not these lines, but blowing our saxes, whatever we get this metaphor. It's been a joy and a pleasure, and I'm very grateful for you and your people.